Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Applebox Chronicles. My name is Peyton Buteau.
And I'm Adryon Thomas.
And today on the ABCs, we are taking you from A to Z on a film that we're not really huge fans of. And the reason for that, well, we like to be film positive here on the Applebox Chronicles. We don't usually like to bring films down, but sometimes we have to be constructive, and that's where this segment comes in. It's a segment we like to call FIXER UPPERS. This is a segment where we go over films that we actually do think need a remake or could benefit from a remake. I know there's a lot of talk about there being too many remakes nowadays, and I agree there is a point to that, but some films could do with a makeover or a reinterpretation, if you will, and they're usually not the films you would expect. Sometimes they're not the most popular movies, because films are popular for a reason. So the film we're talking about today has a letterboxed the letterbox plot synopsis for the film we're talking about today is: he fought his first battle on the Scottish Highlands in 1536. He will fight his greatest battle on the streets of New York City in 1986. His name is Connor MacLeod. He is immortal. And I think, honestly, that exemplifies some of the issues with this movie, because it's like, okay, what was it? What do you mean? So, Adryon, what movie are we talking about today?
We're talking about Highlander. And I just want to reiterate that we do try to be very film positive on here. We're not trying to bring down any movie. This is all going to be very constructive. But I brought this movie and the segment into this podcast because I actually don't hate this movie. I love this movie a lot, but it is so flawed to the point of just absurdity, and I love it in kind of it's so bad it's good kind of way. And I just wanted to kind of go over this movie and what makes it so weird and absurd, and how a remake could kind of utilize that absurdity and make it even better. So Highlander, if you don't know, is about this. It's about a Highlander, a Scottish Highlander. These from back in the 1500s. There's this guy named Connor MacLeod. And he just finds out that he's immortal, just kind of out of nowhere. And we kind of follow him throughout the years as he, figures out his powers and goes about the world. And eventually he becomes not immortal at the end. It's very weird. It's a very weird movie. None of the logic makes sense. And I think that's kind of what's so funny about it, is that there's so much premise to this movie and so much lore, and none of it makes any sense. So let's just go kind of beat by beat in terms of what happens in the movie. The main character, Connor MacLeod, is played by Christopher Lambert. Let's just kind of start off with him. Peyton, what do you think about Christopher Lambert?
I've never seen Christopher Lambert in anything except for this, but now listen. I tend to give movies the benefit of the doubt, and I tend to want to believe that a performance being a certain tone is something stylistic. It's something a little more intended. I'm not one to reject something that feels different, but something about this movie, I feel like I wasn't getting the intended emotional response from his character. I had a hard time. Now, here's the thing. This is my first time seeing this movie. He's seen this movie a couple times.
I've seen it several times, yeah.
So, for me, you're getting both perspectives here. Someone who's seen this movie a lot and is actually very passionate about the issues that he has with it. And for me, it's like, I'm not really attached to this, but as a first-time viewer, and just as someone who's trying to watch a fun movie, I just had a hard time sinking my teeth into this one. Now, granted, there was a lot of stuff I liked about this, and we'll get into it. But yeah, the main character's performance, not one of the strong points of the movie, in my opinion. I think that's something that we agree on.
Yeah. So
'Cause
Chris,
he's just he doesn't feel like he's all there. I don't know what to tell you about that,
uh,
but
one of the very first issues with the movie, before we get into like the details of the plot, is that Christopher Lambert, he's a French Canadian actor. When they hired him, he only spoke French, like French Canadian, and he didn't know a lick of English. He didn't have any sort of accents that he knew. He just spoke French, and the director basically just hired him off of how his face looked. Like I think he saw his face on a billboard somewhere because he was, I guess, modeling, and he just liked his face, and he was like, "I'm gonna put him into my movie," and that
yeah,
is such a weird way to hire someone.
you need a little more than that.
Yeah, I think that was such a bad choice in casting because
You think maybe he was like partway through, he was like, well, I have to commit now.
I mean, yeah, because you hire this guy, doesn't even speak English. The entire movie's in English, and he has to learn not only to speak English, but he needs to learn how to speak English in a Scottish accent as well. And it's just mind blowing that
It
you
doesn't
would even
work.
Yeah,
And here's the thing. He doesn't really have that many lines from what I remember. Like, he does not speak often.
he speaks. It's just like it's almost not even important because like what he's saying is so minimal, almost one-linery, and it doesn't come off right because he has this obvious French Canadian accent on top of his supposed American accent, on top of his supposed Scottish accent. It's so stupid and so weird.
I mean, okay, so let this be an example of something that we really strive for here on the Apple Box Chronicles, which is when something in a movie is not working, usually you can figure out why.
Yeah.
There is something there, and I mean, in this case, it is kind of just a bad choice, but
it's a glaring.
You can see
it's a glaring issue.
You can see that maybe that the filmmaker that hired him maybe didn't really mind too much about the shortcomings there, and maybe was just like, well, the aesthetic is what's important for this movie, the style, and I think that the rest of the movie definitely supports that.
I think that is actually 100% true. I think this director is mainly focused on style and aesthetic and transitions and the way he's moving the camera, and has absolutely no care in the world for performances or even story. I think he just wanted to make a really stylized movie, a very 80s stylized movie.
And in a way, you could say that it's a success in that front. I think that the movie's style is one of its strong suits. I love the look of the movie overall. Like, just, when it started, I was like, this movie looks pretty cool. There's some great transitions. I actually kind of like the action in this movie, especially early on. So a lot of the more stylized elements do kind of work. And this is why we put it on Fixer Uppers, I think if you were to give some kind of rich world building, a more compelling lead, like, you could make something really fantastic out of this material. But no, I mean, the lead's just not compelling. There's not a lot to sink your teeth into beyond the surface, in my opinion, in my experience watching this movie. I kind of wish we had someone like a Highlander super fan guesting on this episode, but
I think I'm kind of the closest one to that.
No, I know people who like it for real.
Yeah, there are people that genuinely like this movie, and no hate to them. It is very much a movie which you could love just based on that nostalgic 80s style and that whole thing going for it. But let's just kind of go through this movie kind of through increments, through scenes.
Okay.
The movie starts off in Madison Square Garden, I believe, a wrestling little event happening, which will kind of come back later in the climax of the movie when they use this camera that's on wires that's kind of hovering over.
Yeah, so they use like the camera that you would use to like televise the wrestling for this movie. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. That was one of the first things that I noticed. I was like, this movie, guys, this movie's good. What do you mean?
Yeah, and they utilize it at the end as well during the big fight. And we cut to, there's this weird kind of cut from all these pictures being taken to the close-up of Connor McLeod.
It's a cool cut. It is a fairly cool camera flash
cut. You could see it, but it's kind of cool how they had it done. And then you just you're following Connor McLeod as he's watching these two guys fight, which mirror the fact that he's this Highlander who's been through several, like a few hundred years of fighting, and he knows that at some point he's gonna have to fight someone else who's immortal like him. Also, as I'm gonna talk about this movie, if it doesn't make a lot of sense, it's because the movie doesn't really make much sense. So if you're kind of questioning along as we go, it's because the movie's like that as well. So we follow this other guy after the wrestling event, and they both meet up in the parking garage, and they both bring out these huge swords, and they start going at it, and they start fighting, and that's kind of the introduction to the movie, where these two guys just fighting with swords. One of the guys is hopping around, doing flips and whatnot, and it's a pretty good intro to the movie. It's I think that kind of encompasses what the director was really going for the entire movie. It just doesn't do well throughout the movie. That beginning fight scene is really a big moment in the movie that kind of hooks you in.
Dude, it was so good. Yeah. I was super excited after that. And then, honestly, I'm not going to lie, by the end of this movie, and this probably because we watched it late at night, I was a little sleepy.
Yeah.
I was getting a little sleepy at the end of this movie. I wish I could lie to you and say that I wasn't, but...
Yeah, no, it's this crazy, weird, out-of-pocket fight scene where there's a bunch of, sparks going on when they're hitting each other's swords and flipping, and you're just... When you watch the movie, you're like, what is happening? Who is this guy? He's in a suit and he's hopping around, and you're trying to figure out who's attacking who, why are they attacking each other, and eventually, obviously Connor McLeod, the main character, he wins. He cuts off the guy's head, and then even weirder stuff starts happening. The guy's decapitated body starts levitating. There's little electric sparks everywhere. There's these animated lightning stuff happening, and then Connor McLeod gets risen up in a weird supernatural way, and then we cut to 1500s Scotland, where we finally start to see the beginnings of this man's life. And
I think more movies could benefit from just cutting to 1500 Scotland to answer questions.
And this happens quite a lot in this movie. There's a lot of cutting back from the past to the present to a different past to the present. And I think that could work in a lot of movies, the kind of non-linear way of telling a story. Does not work in this movie as well, though. This movie just feels so messy when it cuts from present Connor McLeod to past Connor McLeod. And I feel like there's a way for it to work. It just... It doesn't feel like it works in this movie because it keeps... It just doesn't feel very... neat in its presentation, but I don't know. We could go a little later into like that kind of stuff, but we find out that Connor MacLeod used to have this clan, the Scottish clan, and he dies during a battle with another clan, which has Clancy Brown in it. Clancy Brown's in this movie.
The goat. The actual goat. He's the best part of the movie.
He's the best part of the movie.
Just his voice works for the movie. His booming voice that he has. He just does so many cool things.
For those who don't know, Clancy Brown is in a lot of stuff. He's in SpongeBob, for those who don't know. He has Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, he plays Mr. Krabs. That's probably his most like consistent, iconic role. But he is like a character actor, like in so many movies. He was in John Wick 4.
He's in everything. But
I love that guy, really.
Yeah, his character is like this Russian, medieval Russian, brutal clan person. They don't really go that much into his backstory. They just make him really scary, and he kills in quotes Connor MacLeod, and the clan figures out that Connor's dead. They see him on the bed dead, and then the next day he's alive again, which makes him immortal, and they exile him because they think that it's the work of the devil. And I hate that scene where they exile him, because they turn on him so fast. They like, from one moment they love him so much. He has all these friends and cousins who look up to him, and he has this girlfriend or wife who loves him and cherishes him. And then the moment he comes back alive, they beat his ass. Like,
I mean, hey, listen. In 1500 Scotland, you can be cool, but you can't be that cool. Yeah. If you can come back to life, you're done.
It's all devil's work, and they give.
I mean, it kind of like that's a very common thing in like period pieces. It's like, oh, something magical happens. No, this is not amazing. This is scary. Like, get out of here.
This is true, but I think what's so absurd about it is that
It's fine.
I think what's so absurd about it is that they present him just laying down in his deathbed, and he doesn't even look that dead. He just kind of looks out of it. And they're like, oh, he's dead. Where I feel like I would have given him at least the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he just looked dead or something, and he was back and a lot better. I don't know. The way they cut it around makes it look so jarring that they would go against him so fast, and they want to kill him. They want to burn him or hang him or something. And one of his cousins is like, no, we'll just exile him. And it's just so bizarre how people act in this movie. It's a 180 every time. People get so mad or so eccentric out of nowhere. And so we cut back to modern day times, and the police catch him immediately after he fought the one guy and decapitates him. And he's immediately the number one suspect for this. He's just driving out of the parking lot, and they're just like, that's the guy, get him. And they take him like so like, there's an actor in here, Edward Wiley, who plays like one of the arresting cops. One of the worst actors I've ever seen. Like, his portrayal of a cop is so awful, and he just takes him out, and it's like, where's the due process here? Where's, like, how do you know it's him? He's just driving out of a parking lot that's supposedly full of people who just watched this wrestling match, and they get him immediately. They don't explain why they think it's him or any of that stuff.
They totally profiled him, bro.
Yeah, they profiled him out of nowhere. and it's so ridiculous. I feel mad for Connor McLeod because I'm like, how?
Maybe you're supposed to.
Well, yeah, obviously you're supposed to, because it's like, how does this work? Why did the cops just immediately show up? How did they know that someone died? How did they know that there was a scene? Were there witnesses of that? I don't think so. They didn't show any witnesses. How fast did the scene where he decapitates the guy and then leaves the parking lot, how long was that? Because the police show up immediately. They were just right outside the door. The logic just doesn't make any sense. It's kind of crazy.
Dude, you gotta cool it, bro. It's fun.
I know, that's what's so fun about it. It makes no sense. The writing is needs 10 more drafts because
I mean, okay. I feel like they're obfuscating that information that you so desperately want by using that flashback.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you've been through a bit of time with the flashback, so the cops being there doesn't feel very jarring.
Exactly, but I think that's it's not cheating, but it's kind of like cheating because you're taking logic out of the scene and replacing it with a different type of logic that doesn't make sense for the...
Now, this is not a movie to be taken super literally.
No.
I do think it needs, I guess, it kind of needs a little, I think it just needs a little more establishment of how its world operates in modern day, since it's such a kind of fantastical, story and movie, and but like I said, it's just style, it's just vibes. It's not really worried about the finer details of that kind of stuff.
Well, obviously not.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying it's just one of these interesting questions where it's I don't know. I that wasn't a problem I had with the movie because I was just
I've seen this so many
all
times.
along for the ride.
Yeah, and every time that happens and he gets detained, I'm like, what? How did they find him to be suspect number one? How?
Okay, yeah,
know?
the finding him suspicious you kind of need more reason for that because it's just random.
It's so random.
I don't care that the cops get there super fast. I feel like that's forgivable. There's security at these kinds of things. I feel like that's fine. But I think there just
they were all showing up. There's one cop there, and then everybody.
It's a big city.
That's so stupid.
I don't care about that, dude.
Of course you don't care about that.
I don't care about that. That's not what movies are about, bro.
No, it's not. But there's they don't give any reason for any of it. They just kind of blow over it. It's like the writers are like, okay, he needs to get captured by the police. We'll just have him captured by the police. We're not giving any reason why.
I mean, yeah, you need to give a reason why he specifically is being captured by the police, but
yeah, I guess
the police pulling up kind of fast. It's okay.
Yeah,
this is also a guy's head just got chopped off, bro.
Yeah, and so we
okay. For example, there was sorry, I don't want to linger on this shit, but for example, there was just a giant electrical surge in the parking garage. Maybe they were checking that out. Maybe they were showing up for that.
Maybe, but usually when that happens, I don't think it's a...
Maybe someone heard them fighting and called the cops earlier.
There's probably ways that you could have...
Maybe they... You know what? Remake, do this, okay? If you're remaking this part, when they're fighting, sword fighting in the parking garage, have someone see it,
exactly.
Have someone call it in, and give a visual description. Hey, this dude with a huge fucking forehead just fucking cut this guy's head off. And then they're like, you're wearing the same thing, you look like the guy, we're detaining you. That could have very easily been what happened, but because they don't show that, it makes you pissed off.
Exactly. No, that's exactly why this has been the movie that I wanted to do so much, because there's so many ways to fix a lot of the problems in this movie that they just don't really do or utilize or expound upon, because I don't think the director or the writers really cared for that. Well, in some aspects, you don't need to care about that stuff, but in the end, if you're watching something and you want people to like it and watch it again and again, all these minor details will start becoming more noticeable, and it will detract from like.
It's a cheesy, corny '80s movie, which honestly, that is my least favorite thing about it. It's not any of the smaller stuff. It's just I don't care for the cheesy '80s aesthetic. I don't. I think the filmmaking can be cool. The transitions are cool. Clancy Brown, excellent. Love that. Kind of campy. I love it. But something about this is literally the movie. So I had a manager at my job like many years ago that really wanted me to watch The Fifth Element. And I don't know, did The Fifth Element come out in the 80s or the 90s?
90s.
Okay. The point still fucking stands, okay? They really wanted me to watch The Fifth Element. And I was like, fine. I go home and I watch it. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't care for The Fifth Element. I thought it was fine. No hate to The Fifth Element fans. But then I just know that guy loves this shit. Like, this is the kind of movie that, like, your older coworker will feel really passionately about.
Yeah.
Like, if you like Lucky Number 11, this is a movie you should watch.
Yeah.
I know Jeff loves this movie. Our friend Jeff loves this movie. I just know it. I haven't even asked him.
Yeah, he probably does.
I'm profiling him harder than the police.
Yeah, we mentioned Lucky Number 11 because we watched that recently, and it's also a movie that's not.
We should do that.
Great.
We should do that at some point. Anyway,
but like along with the story, I think we cut back to him in Scotland, where his life's like completely different after being exiled. He has a wife now. Also, I also wanted to say that there's another cut of this movie that's longer, that has more stuff in it, but they didn't release that in America because they took like 8 minutes of scenes out.
That's the cut where they call the cops on him during the fight, and you can actually see it happen.
Maybe, but no, there was a lot of, at least from the quick research that I did, stuff in there that was more for a European audience that they felt like the Americans wouldn't really get or like. So
I don't get this, bro.
Yeah,
I don't get this. We should import that cut somehow and watch it, and you're gonna be like, this is a masterpiece. It's perfect.
Maybe
this 8 minutes changes everything.
Maybe. I mean, I think the director even said that they took out a scene where he meets his I guess his wife in Scotland, that was essential to like their whole relationship, that is not in the movie that we see now, and I guess that would have been nice to have in there. I don't think that was really the problem with the movie. But
neither is the cops not being called, Adrian.
I think that, I mean, there's a lot of problems like that in the movie, which like build to the point where the movie just, that's why the movie's as bad as it is.
Ooh, I know what we should do on Fixer Uppers at some point. Anyway.
But yeah, he has a new life now, and then he meets Sean Connery, the Sean Connery character, which is one of the biggest enigmas in like cinematic character history.
I love Sean Connery. I love him in this movie. I love the character. It's hilarious though.
It's
like
hilarious.
I love watching him because he's super entertaining.
He's great. He definitely brings a charm to this movie that it definitely needed.
Dude, yeah, those Scotland scenes are just a fucking drag before he shows up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But so we could kind of explain why he's such a weird enigma is the way he explains himself as a character in the movie. So he says that he's Egyptian, but then he gives us a Spanish name and then says that he's Spanish. he's Sean Connery, who's Scottish, and they're in Scotland, and he has his usual Sean Connery kind of Scottish accent. He's not Scottish in the movie. He plays an Egyptian Spaniard who's been around for thousands of years. He's been to Japan. He has a Japanese sword. He's married a Japanese wife.
Dude, he's just culturally dynamic.
That's what I think they're trying to say, but it's also like, he's Egyptian? What? He's Spanish? What? That's so weird. Like, if you're gonna hire Sean Connery in a movie that takes place in Scotland, make him Scottish. Like, why in the world would you make him Egyptian and then also give him a Spanish name? What were they thinking? I don't know.
I mean, I think they were just thinking this dude's been all over the world, so we need to kind of like throw. I mean, it's done in kind of a messy way, but like we need to just throw all of this cultural influence into this one character to kind of give that vibe. But it just all feels like it's trying to accomplish its goals in very superficial ways. It's not really like taking the time to make the character, I guess, feel more. I don't know. It's kind of telling, not showing. It's showing and telling different things.
I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to make him seem like he's really old, he's ancient, he's been around, he's cultured. What they should have done was hired. Obviously, they weren't going to do this in the 80s because they didn't give a crap about this stuff. But they should have hired an Egyptian actor or maybe a Spanish actor. And
the thing is, now you can.
Now you can with the remake.
With the remake.
That's what they need to do. If they're going to stay true to that character, at least, in their background, hire an Egyptian actor. Hire someone that looks like what they're telling us. Like, that's a lot of what this movie's problem is that they're telling us things, but we're seeing something completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole problem with this movie, is that we're supposed to rely on this information that just is obviously not true.
And we also get a training montage with this character.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, there's some cool shots here, some really cool, like, landscapes and things that they used. But dude, the thing about a training montage, I think, is that there has to be something that, like, there's not really a big sense of improvement in this training montage. Yeah. There's not really. First of all, the Highlander, Connor McLeod, he's already like a good warrior, right?
I guess.
Isn't that kind of the implication in the beginning?
I guess when you find out who he is and they're in battle, they're like, everybody's fighting except for him, because Clancy Brown's character, Krug, he's like...
Krug?
That's his
I
name.
didn't even remember that.
Yeah, they
10 out of 10.
He tells his people, he's like, don't kill Connor McLeod, he's mine. So Connor's going through the battles, he's like, nobody's hitting me, nobody's attacking me. And until Krug comes up and stabs him really easily. Like, there was no fight at all.
Yeah.
Connor McLeod just raises his sword really slowly, and then Krug just stabs him in the stomach, and he gets killed immediately.
I guess, yeah. So I guess there is not really an opportunity to show that, but this training montage just doesn't have like
you don't see a progression. Yeah,
you don't see progression. You see them fighting in different locations. You don't see like something he's really trying to master that he masters by the end of the scene. Like, it's not really telling that much of a arc. It's just kind of showing them fight for a really long time. And I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, the only indication of progression is when they're running on the beach and Connor McLeod finally feels this energy that his immortality allows him to have, called the quickening, where they don't explain it very well. It's kind of like the Force, but not, because he can't move things, but he could like feel the vibrations of like animals around him, and like there's a when they're doing that scene where they're running on the sand, and he's like, yeah, I feel it, I got the quickening. He's talking about this deer like in the background who's like running, and Connor McLeod is like, yeah, I could feel his heartbeat, I could feel that deer's energy, and that's making me faster, and I could run really fast.
He's got
now.
like Last of Us listening mode.
They don't explain the powers of the quickening that well. I guess it just makes them.
He's just in touch with nature. He's in touch with the life around him.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but basically, Sean Connery is his mentor, and he kind of explains that he's immortal. He can't die, except for when another immortal being fights him and cuts his head off, and then that being kind of takes that person's like quickening, or that person.
So that's what we saw happen in the parking garage. Yeah, basically.
So it is kind of doing this slow reveal of who Connor McLeod's immortal abilities are, but there's not much rules with it. They don't really explain a lot of it, which is super annoying, because they say they basically have to get their heads cut off, but what if a non-immortal person did that? Then what would happen? Would that immortal person that got their head cut off just not die?
These are not questions you're supposed to be asking.
Obviously not.
These are not questions you're supposed to be asking.
No. So that's my problem, is that this movie gives us so many ways for us to like perceive the rules of the movie, but it's not clear about any of it. So any minor thought that you have, that you just might, wait a second, what happens if this happens, it just ruins the entire lore and the rules of this
I guess so, if that's how you want to think about it. I mean, I think that with like fantasy like this, it's just that, I mean, there's always going to be questions like that. I think this movie's trying to be somewhat mysterious and magical about it. So that's why it kind of keeps it enigmatic and ambiguous. But I think for the most part, you could pick apart other fantasy things the same. I think this one is just an easier target.
It's an easier target, but no, I think a lot of other fantasy stuff, at least they maintain integrity of their mythos and their lore. This one, it's just a dude. Like, so let's talk a little bit about the writers and the writing of this movie. Gregory Wyden is the guy that came up with the story. He was a firefighter that kind of became a screenwriter. He would go on to do Backdraft, which was a popular Ron Howard movie about firefighting.
Oh, so he was a firefighter. That's why the cops get on the scene so fast, because he's used to being the first on the scene.
Maybe, except there's no firefighters in the movie. He also wrote and directed a movie called Prophecy, which became a trilogy of like direct to TV. It was kind of like, I think the first one came out in theaters and the rest were TV movies. But that was about angels coming down and fighting each other. Really weird movie too. The lore doesn't make sense either. I think that's kind of the thing with this guy, is that he just has these concepts, these really cool concepts, but it's never fleshed out as well as you want it to be. For instance, this movie this is why we're talking about why it needs a remake, because it does have a good concept. There's these immortals living out in the world, they're kind of battling each other, and you get it from the perspective of this one immortal who's from the Highlands of Scotland, and you just kind of see how he through the years how he figures out his life, and that's a fine movie. But Gregory Wyden, I don't know what's up with his movies, but they have these a good enough concept. It's just not fleshed out well enough. And then there's two other writers on this movie. Peter Bellwood, he doesn't have that much other credits other than also writing the sequel. And then there's Larry Ferguson, who's kind of the bigger writer. They probably got him on because he's done like Hunt for Red October, good movie, co-wrote that. He did write Alien 3, co-wrote that. People have opinions on that movie. I think that's like a whole different story about like the production and the writing for that movie. So there's three writers on this movie, and for a movie that has three writers, it shouldn't be this messy. And that's what's kind of frustrating as well, because when you have someone who has a good spec script and you're like, okay, we're going to bring on other writers to kind of flesh this out, kind of doctor it up, make it good, and then you bring these two other writers on, and then it still feels like it needs fleshing out. It still needs, like, there needs to be other drafts done. It's just, to me, it's frustrating when you have so many people working on this movie and they can't seem to figure out how to tell a somewhat simple story, and they just make it more convoluted than it needs to be, and more.
I think this movie could have greatly benefited from being more, I guess, more intentionally funny, more like leaning more onto camp and humor. But the thing about this kind of movie is that I like that it is very sincere. I like that it is very like, this is what it is, and it plays its stuff straightforward, even though it's all kind of like out there and fantastical and funny in some ways. So I appreciate that always. But I think with this movie in particular, it kind of feels like it's not having fun with itself. Like it wants you to be like very, it doesn't feel very sensitive to the fact that like it's kind of hard to ask an audience. At least it would be incredibly hard now, but I don't know how hard it was in the 80s, but it's kind of hard to ask an audience to completely seriously engage with something that like you just showed them, and you're not giving them like a lot of like, it doesn't really give you a lot of like, it kind of expects you to run in this world before you can crawl. I don't know if that makes sense. It doesn't really give you like a lot of room to grow with the story.
I think it tries.
It feels.
To do it.
I don't know. For a lot of it, it kind of felt like I was catching up, and I kind of couldn't get on the wavelength.
Yeah, I think when it does the flashbacks, it's trying to like introduce the audiences to these ideas, like kind of bit by bit, but then we keep going back to the present time, and you don't really know what's happening there because you don't have enough information from the past.
I actually think it might have been better, and this, I mean, you'd have to change up some things because I think the Scotland segments could use like a little more juice, but I think it actually might have been better if they had started the movie in present day, shown you that crazy fight, shown him getting arrested, maybe, and then they kind of leave you on a cliffhanger of what's going to happen to him, and then they go back and build up his character the whole time.
Yeah.
And then you get to arrive back in present day. Like, maybe you go back in time and you follow kind of him, but then you also follow the Clancy Brown character, and then you kind of arrive in present day with the Clancy Brown character, and then they meet back up again.
That actually sounds like it would have been a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds much cooler. I think the back and forth is what kind of kills it for me. It kind of makes it harder to engage with the movie because it's kind of like I feel like I'm getting, used to the setting and I'm getting into it, and then it just moves me to present or past from there. So that's where I think it falls short. I think that it's just not a movie that I'm personally into in terms of the 80s kind of corny, cheesy vibe. I do like corny things, as you know, but the thing about there's something about the 80s. I don't know. It's the decade with, like, I think the least amount of movies on my, like, favorites list. Like, I showed my favorites list to a relative of mine one time, and he was like, so you don't like the 80s? I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that. Like, I just don't. Maybe it's just I haven't seen enough 80s movies.
I don't think you've seen enough 80s
but there's
movies.
something about this. There's something about this. It's my least favorite, like, horror. I don't think is as good in the 80s. Like,
that's kind of wild to say because I think 80s was like peak horror times.
no, like it's a certain type of horror. It's the peak for a certain kind of horror, but it's not. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe I just haven't seen enough movies. But there's something about this movie that the vibes just don't work. And I wish they did, because it feels like on any other day I should be, like, a guy that likes this movie. It actually feels unnatural how much I didn't like it.
Well, I mean, it's, like, obviously this is my opinion, but I don't think it's a good movie. I love the movie because of how ungood it is, but I just don't think you've kind of. Well, I think we're on different wavelengths in terms of, like, what makes a movie, like, so bad it's good. Kind of wrong.
The thing is, I think so bad is good is pretty. It makes sense, you know. Because you can think a movie is just in poor quality, but you enjoy watching it. That makes sense. I can conceive that for sure. Kind of like, I mean, I recently kind of felt that way with Minecraft, the Minecraft movie. But I kind of, like, think so bad is good as sometimes, and I mean, I don't think you're doing this, but I think sometimes people use so bad it's good as, like, a way to be like, I shouldn't like this movie, but I do. And I think it's important to just embrace the fact that you did like the movie.
Well, yeah, that's just another way of saying, oh, that's a guilty pleasure of mine.
I don't think there should be any guilt in pleasure.
No,
not at all.
Yeah, I feel the same exact way.
So,
if you like something, you like it. You shouldn't feel guilty about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this movie, I'm almost like, man, this kind of seems like it would be up my alley if it was just a little different. So that's why I think it worked to throw on Fixer Uppers. But yeah, Clancy Brown, amazing.
Yeah,
I loved him in this.
And
There's a scene when he's in, like, a hotel room or something, and he's just spinning that fucking sword around.
Well, yeah, let's continue on with the story, I guess.
Okay.
So, yeah, we kind of see him. He's back in present day. He's getting interrogated by the police. One of the worst police interrogation scenes I've ever seen because, again, they don't really explain how they caught him or if he's even a suspect. They let him go because they can't really hold him. Again, they have no evidence that he was there. They abused they're, like, talking shit to him the entire time. Like, this guy Edward Wiley, he's just, like, making gay jokes towards him, and it's so I hate all the interactions. They're so unnatural, and yet so funny because it's like, this, not only would this not happen, but it's so unnecessary how much they hate him for no reason. They hate Connor McLeod for no reason. They just automatically assume he's the bad guy. He's the guy that cut off his head, which he did cut off his head, but that, I guess, doesn't make him the bad guy in the story.
If you give the audience the reason to believe that they know it for sure,
yeah, then
I guess it kind of makes more sense why they would hate him.
Yeah, but they don't do that.
But yeah, they're just bullying his ass. It's crazy.
And then he tries to attack Connor McLeod, and he just, like, pushes him up against the wall, and they just let him go after that, even though I guess you could say that was...
Oh, fuck, okay.
Yeah, I guess he did have, like, he was being aggressive to the police, but they were like, get him out of here, he's no use to us at this point. It's so... I wish we could, like, watch the movie with the audience and just do a commentary, because that would be...
One day we could.
We could probably do that one day. But yeah, he gets let go, and then we're introduced to the Roxanne Hart character. That's the name of the actress. She plays the main love interest in this movie. She's what do you call it? A forensic scientist for the police, but she's also a specialist in metallurgy. The when you study metals, and she's really into like understanding how swords were made back in the old ancient days and Japanese swords and all that. And so she finds evidence that there was like some really old Japanese sword that was used to cut off the guy's head. And she also, like, I think it's really funny that she's the forensic person there, but she's also happens to be a like a blacksmith expert, so she could find all this information that the audience needs to know about Connor McLeod. And she kind of latches on that he has the sword and he's the one who beheaded the guy. And then there's that whole romance, which is just weird. I think the romance is weird because there's nothing that there's no chemistry there. Like she's trying to follow him to figure out information. He's trying to follow her to figure out what she knows. They don't really know that much about each other, but then they fall in love later. I don't know. What did you feel about the romance of the movie?
I didn't care.
Exactly. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. There's no reason for us to want these guys to be together except for one person's a guy and one person's a girl.
This was another thing, Laura. I'm just like, it's just got this like this is the kind of cheese I don't like, is where like the movie just kind of doesn't feel it needs to put in the work to make these characters' connection believable and make their romance like something you can root for. It kind of just feels like a lot, and I can't think of any specific examples right now, but I feel like this is done in other movies too, where it's just like they have this random encounter between this man and this woman, and suddenly they're just in romance because they're in peril together, I guess. That's like only...
That makes sense because when you're in a situation where there's a lot of there's shit happening.
Yeah, it's like that person feels safe to you.
You could bring people together through like circumstances, but there's...
Do they ever even have a scene where they like really, really like open up to one another and like talk? Like there's usually a quiet scene with these kinds of things. I can't even remember.
There kind of is, where Connor McLeod talks about how he was immortal. He's been through centuries of doing his stuff, but we don't really get her perspective, her life, or her backstory or anything. She's just like,
she's not very dimensional.
Yeah, she just likes Connor McLeod because he's
cool
and cool, I guess.
He's the coolest guy ever.
So yeah, it all feels just kind of forced, this romance stuff. There's also like, he has 3 relationships in this movie. There's the one at the very beginning with his wife or girlfriend or whatever, who turns on him immediately and wants him burnt and dead, and she hates his guts because he woke up the next day. And then there's he has like a wife after he's been exiled, and he meets Sean Connery, and they want a life together. They seem to be like very happy together. One of the things about him being immortal that Sean Connery kind of explains is that he can never have children. He can never have a family, and that's the problem with being immortal, is that everybody else will grow old around him, but he will always remain that same age. Which is something that you've seen in other movies. They talk about that. It's kind of usually like a cliche thing to happen when you have immortal characters. The whole not being able to have a child thing, I don't know how that works, but I guess he's just infertile when he's immortal. And they kind of showcase that he and this lady, his wife, like in the middle of the movie, have like a pretty good relationship. They live long, happy lives, and she dies an old lady and he's still the same, and he lights a candle for her on her birthday every year. just to remember her.
And that is immediately cuter and better than the other romance in the film. So, what else do we have to go over in terms of the story?
So, Krug comes back to take on Connor McLeod back in the Highlander times. And instead of finding Connor McLeod, he finds Sean Connery's character. And they have a little fight in their weird tower house thing that's just in the middle of nowhere. And they have this big epic fight that kind of looks ridiculous. And the place is falling down around them. There's a bunch of lightning happening. And then...
honestly, the atmosphere kind of goes crazy in that fight.
It's a nice little set piece. It does look like pretty set PC. Like there's like
it's got some epicness to it.
The walls crumbling around them looks like foam, and they're barely swinging at each other. It's really it has its charms, but it also looks really weird and corny. Anyway, Krug kills the Sean Connery character. You kind of always have to have that happen in the hero's journey, where the mentor dies or gets taken out of the picture and the hero has to go at it alone. I hate how this all comes about, because Krug kills Sean Connery, and before he kills him, he asked about the girl who's Connor's wife, and Sean Connery, trying to save her, says, "No, she's my girl. It's not Conor McGregor." Conor McLeod's
honestly,
wife.
Conor McGregor in the remake. Do it.
That would be ridiculous. But no,
it worked for Roadhouse.
He was pretty fun in Roadhouse. That was kind of fun. But with his political alignment today, that's kind of annoying. Anyway, so Krug kills Sean Connery, and then he sexually assaults McLeod's wife, and they kind of skip over that whole part until much later in the movie. And
I think if you're remaking it, you might have to just not do that part.
Yeah, we don't need that.
It's
just
part.
Another reason for Connor to want to kill Krug.
Little bit of a dated part of the movie.
But yeah, Krug kills Sean Connery's character. He assaults McLeod's wife, and then he just leaves the scene. And then McLeod...
And then the cops pull up.
No, and McLeod comes back, and Krug doesn't try to find McLeod for centuries. Like, they don't meet again until New York. Like, this entire time. That's another thing. There's so much... When you're immortal, you live so long. And for them to not meet up again between the time of his Scottish years to his American years, those centuries were like, where was Krug during that whole time? Why didn't he come and try to get Connor McLeod again until New York?
I wish there was some kind of explanation for that.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go into the rules again. That doesn't make any sense. So all these immortals just kind of, some of them know each other. And it's this weird enigma where there can be only one. They say that so many times in the movie, where the last immortal gets these powers. They don't say what powers.
I mean, it's implied that they would get all the powers of all the other ones by killing them. And
it's implied that all these immortals at some point have to face each other, and the last one standing kind of gets the big prize or whatever. But there are friendships within some of these immortals, like, for instance, Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert, like, they have a friendship, but if it were to come down to them two being the last, one of them would have to cut the other person's head off. Like, why would you want to help another immortal? Why would Sean Connery's character want to help Christopher Lambert's character in becoming this immortal person when Sean Connery could have just decapitated?
Well, maybe he doesn't believe in that stuff. Maybe he
not.
doesn't. He doesn't think there needs to be one.
I guess we could. There. Hopefully, they do this in the remake where they kind of explain their logic into this, because I feel like if there are these several immortals who all have to face each other, no two immortals or a group of immortals would gang up or like would team together, because in the end only one person could win. It's like Hunger Games, like if you think about it. Like it's weird that some of these people would come together to help fight these other people, but then in the end, once the op is taken care of, you have these bunch of people who now have to take each other out.
I mean, do they though? Like, do they actually have to, or is it just something that they say, like, that some immortals have the goal of taking out all the other ones, and then some of them are like, no, we should all just chill?
They don't go into that in this movie, and I don't understand. I just
because they don't really have like a governing power that's telling them they need to do that at all.
Also, how does one just be born an immortal? Who's picked?
I mean, bro, we don't gotta know all of that.
No, well, that's the thing. We should.
We gotta know all that.
As an audience, know this stuff, because then we're left asking.
Well, okay. I think to a degree, I get you. Like, there's some things that could be explained better or more. But also, to a degree, like, once you really start asking, like, every possible question, bro, like, you're just asking for the movie to be, like, 3 hours and have way too much exposition and be really boring. Because, like, I don't need to know how people are born an immortal. Maybe you could just put that into, like, a throwaway line or something.
It's not hard to fix these problems. It's just they don't even address any of these problems.
The thing is, they don't really let a lot of these things carry a lot of weight in the story. So it's in this weird place where you don't feel like knowing that would not actually, like, knowing that would, I guess, make you be less confused. But it wouldn't actually change the story they're trying to tell. So I think there just needs to be a better marriage of, like, world building and plot.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's no sense of... There's just no sense of logic with any of these rules that they establish in the movie.
I think there's no sense... I just think there's no sense of importance. Like, I just think there's no sense of, like... So Clancy Brown, he hates Connor McLeod and he wants to kill him, presumably to be a step closer to being the last immortal. So okay, maybe you could assume that he spent all those centuries hunting other immortals.
Yeah.
All you got to do is tell us that.
Exactly.
You know? There are things in the movie that I agree could just be addressed so easily and make for maybe some additional fun content and material in the movie. But I also think there's even a way to make a better version of this movie that has just less rules. Because the problem is that it introduces rules and then it doesn't elaborate on them to a degree where you can really get invested in them and take them seriously. If they just kind of made the movie less, what's the word?
Convoluted?
Yeah, sort of. It's just if they made the movie a little more, if they didn't imply so much knowledge to be held by certain characters that isn't shared with us, then it would be easier to just get on board with it and not need everything to have, like, a deep explanation.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
So this is what happens so often with me and you, is like we're sort of on the same page. I think it's just you're you're more I don't know. I just don't want to be like nitpicking like the logic of every little thing in the movie, because it's a fantasy film, and I don't think it needs to all be taken so literally and so at face value. But then I also see your point, where it's like, well, if they just didn't give us all this material, there wouldn't be such a need for more information. It's like, I don't know, it's like someone it's like someone's handing you a sandwich, but like one of the bread slices is missing. And it's like, I can't tell if this is supposed to be toast or if you just forgot the other bread slice.
I guess
that's all I got.
But I think you're assuming
the stupidest thing I've ever said.
I think you're assuming that I'm saying that there needs to be like such an extensive sense of explanation and expounding on these things. It's like, no, you could still show and yet not tell the audience what's happening. For instance, we don't know what's happening with Krug between Scotland and present day New York, but they do have flashbacks of Connor McLeod in other like periods. Like he's in, I think, Victoria era like England, where he has this duel with another guy. They're like dueling it out, and he keeps dying, but he keeps getting reset. It's like kind of a little comedic moment. What they could have done is they could have, like, with that same flashback, they could have cut to Krug also doing something where he's like attacking another immortal, so we get kind of updated on Krug and on McLeod.
Maybe you get like him fighting an immortal, and then he kills the immortal, and then he finds some piece of information that reminds him of McLeod, and then that's what causes him to think, okay, McLeod, that's the person I'm gonna go after next.
Yeah,
you know, or something like that. Or maybe just make it really dramatic, be like, okay, after all these centuries, he's the last one I need to kill. Something, you know.
I think we'll
like maybe the fight at the beginning when McLeod kills that other one in the parking garage. Have that be something that Krug finds out about and is like, oh, that was the last other one. Maybe Krug was hunting that guy, but McLeod got to him first, and so then it's like, oh, well, two birds, one stone. You guys are both in the same place. There you are. Let me, you know.
Well, they also do this thing where McLeod meets another immortal. I forgot the actor's name, but he's in like Phantom Menace, the Star Wars movie. But they're like friends, and that's how we get the flashback of the whole duel sequence, and where he's like fighting the other guy. But he's friends with this other immortal, and they introduce that they know each other and they're not going to fight each other. But again, they never really get into the minutia of like, so what if it's they're the last two? Why are they friends in the first place? How do they know each other? They don't really talk about that stuff. But they just introduced this other guy so that Krug could kill that guy, so that it's Krug and McLeod as the last two immortals. And I think that's what they were trying to lead up to. It's like Krug finishes off this guy, so he just has McLeod left to go. But again, I feel like we should have had more background on Krug, kind of following him throughout the years, as well as McLeod, so that we kind of understand like where each person is at each point in time, so that we don't just forget about Krug and what he's up to and what he's doing. So yeah, we find out that Krug is still alive. He's in New York trying to find these other immortals. He gets a little motel room where he's just awful. I think he kills a hooker or something. Like, they assume that. He has this really cool knife that you could like put together. It doesn't look very, like, I feel like that sword is gonna fall apart when he hits, because you gotta have to like put it together. And he's like swinging around in his room.
Awesome scene though.
I think it's a funny scene.
No, I think that shit was awesome.
I think it's funny.
That was like when I was like, no, maybe this is good.
No, he looks ridiculous doing that stuff.
No, he looks cool as shit, dude. He's so fun.
I can't imagine being in a room, also, like, if I were to do that stuff, I would think to myself, I look ridiculous doing this stuff right now.
Well, I think you just need to, you know,
Whatever.
just be
No,
proud.
no, he looks ridiculous in that scene.
Well, I would do
What
the
is
same
he practicing?
thing.
What is he? He's just practicing.
I would do the
He's
same
not hitting
thing.
anything else. He's not actually practicing.
Hey,
He's
you're
just, like,
telling me
swinging
you
that
never
around.
did that.
Huh?
You telling me you never did that.
Like swinging
Bro,
stuff
I got
around?
I got nunchucks, bro. I'd be doing that all the time.
Yeah, well, he has a sword, not nunchucks.
Well, if I had a sword, I'd do the same thing. I'd be swinging that shit around at nothing all the time.
It's ridiculous. Plus, he's like several centuries old. Like, what does he need to do that for? It's just there to show that character and to show that he has this weapon, and I guess he's kind of cool. And that's all that scene is there for, when they could have been doing stuff where they can showcase him fighting another immortal at another flashback. But it could have been a budgeting... Of course, we're not talking about all this... they could do all this stuff, but, you know, directors and producers have budgeting reasons why they don't do everything that would be cool to be happen in a movie. And I can't blame the director and the producers and the actors for everything, because you can't get... No movie's going to be perfect anyway, and so you kind of have to roll with what you have.
And I think that's, you know, that I don't want to sound hypocritical because we've been criticizing this movie and what it could have done better, but I do think it is kind of important to remember that, especially nowadays when everyone's got an opinion and everyone's going out there and being like, well, they should have just done this, and it's like, well, you say that,
yeah,
but they might have wanted to do that for all you know. Yeah. So that's important to remember. I think with movies that are like absolutely huge, like some of the most big budget like blockbusters out there, I think it's a little more fair to be like, why didn't you just do it this way?
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of those movies are criticized for being not simple enough. Like they need to cut back on some of the insane spectacle and the things that are expensive to do. So, but then, you know, sometimes you have something expensive that you already put in the budget, and then you have to do it even though you realize, oh, that didn't pan out the way we wanted it to. But we still have to use it because we spent so much money on that. So everything is a business, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's all got to do with money and business. But a couple fellas on a couch can dream. We can dream of a better Highlander.
Yeah.
And we might get one.
So, yeah, and that's kind of why we're pointing out all this stuff, so that in the remake, hopefully they could kind of fix all these problems that we're kind of laying about. Well, let's just kind of finish up the movie and like what we're going through. So Krug is back in New York. He meets Connor, and he's like, "Well, we're the last two. We gotta fight it out." And they do. And Krug takes the girl, the love interest, as hostage. They fight it out. Obviously, Connor wins, and he's now the one. And I guess the big power is that he's now not immortal, and he could have a family, and he could read, he could read everybody's like minds, and he could like see the world as it is. Like I don't, he has like a big brain now.
So here's what I think the movie's trying to do, and I hope this is true. So I think the ultimate reward being mortality, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool, because it's like, oh, well, the ultimate reward is to actually have a life that is beautiful and temporary. Yeah. And that you know, you can have a family and you can make memories, and those things are more important because you know they one day won't be there. And you know, it's just about like the beauty of life and how fleeting it is and everything like that. And he can now live a life where he's connected to others, because before it's like he's this disconnected being. He's immortal, he's different from everyone else. Now being the same is kind of being, I guess, not the same, but being part of like part of something is like the ultimate reward in a way. However, I don't know why you have to kill I kind of get what they're doing. It's kind of cool. But then at the same time you have to murder every other immortal to get to that point. And it's like, please somebody point out the significance of this if you feel strongly about it. But it's like, it almost does feel a little bit like if there was a way he could have like given up his immortality and like refused to fight or something like that. I mean, you kind of have to kill Krug. He's an asshole.
Yeah.
But I just think that like,
I think the ironic thing is that Krug likes his immortality, so if he were to become
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
He would have been mortal again, and so he would have hated it. He would have been like, what the heck is this?
Maybe it's this sort of thing where it's like, well, he was never going to because he didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have like a pure heart and like be, and that's like the ultimate lesson and whatever. Yeah. Maybe it would have been kind of cool if just the ending is just Krug being like, fuck. I won, but what at what cost?
Yeah.
I kind of want to see a version of this movie from his point of view.
That would
just
be
completely about him. But a little bit of a beautiful ending there. I just think it's just a little counterproductive. It's like you got to kill everyone else, and then you learn that life is beautiful and great.
Yeah.
I feel like the lesson is forced upon the main character. The main character just kind of feels like the whole movie. He just kind of feels like things are happening to him that he's not investing in. Like, he's not the one moving the story forward. It feels like the story moves and drags him along, and like the ending is kind of the ultimate example of that, where this kind of profound lesson it's just like put onto him. It's like, see, there you go. It's like, yeah, you're telling me that as an audience. I appreciate what you're putting down, but it doesn't seem like the dude is like, it doesn't seem like he's all there for it. Like, this dude does not feel like present in the entire movie.
Yeah. I think that's because he's not being able to speak English. He doesn't know how to present himself as a good actor. Like, you can't really blame him for not being a great actor in this movie because he doesn't know how to speak English. Like, he's learning on his way through. Like, how do you direct someone to speak a language that they don't know, that they have to learn to do it like properly and give a good, relatable performance? You can't, because he's French Canadian. He's not Scottish. He's not American. Like, there's no background. There's no cultural significance that he knows. He's not taking anything from anything except the direction of the director, who's just probably like, let's say that a little bit with the more American accent and see if that works a bit better. And that's all you're getting from the director. So let me just go back to the ending as well. It's ironic to me that no matter if you're an immortal, you're gonna have an ending. Like, you're gonna become mortal at some point. So the whole point of being immortal only to not be mortal is kind of weird to me, because you're either gonna get your head chopped off or you're gonna become the one, and then you're gonna become mortal like everybody else. So what is the whole point of all these guys being immortal in the first place? Like, why? Like,
it just kind of feels like a story that's like wanting to get to a conclusion. Like, they probably just think the conclusion is like, and it is like, it's a good message. Yeah. It's just like,
I feel like there should have been, like, I don't think you should be born immortal and would have to live this life. I think it would have been a cooler thing if there was a group of them who like did some kind of like sorcery or something, and they all got cursed with immortality, and now they have to live with that bad decision until the very end. but instead you're just given these guys who are just randomly, it seems randomly, that they're born immortal, and they just have to live this life until one of them.
Yeah, they're just born cursed to fight for their
Yeah.
mortality. They have to like fight for the ability to have like a family, and maybe there's a commentary there about something.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I feel kind of bad, but I just don't feel like I understand it.
Now I should also explain that some of this might be uh fleshed out already, because if you didn't know this, there are 4 sequels to this movie, 2 TV series, an animated series, a TV movie, a card game, and 2 video games off of this franchise, off of this one movie.
So, I mean, so we've just been sounding like assholes for like an hour.
I don't think we have, because even though I have not seen the sequels, all I hear about is that the second movie is considered one of the worst movies ever made, and it kills the canon of the first movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so the second movie, I guess, I haven't seen this movie. This is just based on what I remember reading about it, but I think they're aliens. Like, they have like some sort of alien background.
Okay, no, that makes a little more sense.
Maybe.
They want to be human, they have to fight to be human.
But I don't know how it works, because the third movie then kills the canon of the second movie as if that movie never happened, and then that movie goes on. And so I don't understand what the canon of this movie or these series is, because nobody seems to be on the same wavelength with anybody else with all of this stuff going on. Another thing I want to say is that this was not a box office hit. It made 12.8 million in box office. It had a budget of 19 million. Why do you think there are so many sequels and spin-offs and all that stuff for a movie that didn't even break even?
Why do I think that?
Yeah.
I actually have no fucking idea.
I think, and this is what kind of sucks about nowadays, is that if something fails, it fails completely, whereas if something failed back in the 80s or the 90s, you could still have life afterward because of video rentals and physical media.
Oh yeah.
So
I should have thought of that.
yeah, so what I assume is that this movie didn't do great in the box office. I think it did do a little better overseas than in America, but I think a lot of people found this through renting videos and buying DVDs, and that market grew enough for them to want to make a sequel and to continue to push this franchise out, because people were constantly buying or renting these videos, and there was a market there that could sustain your movie and can sustain your franchise without just the sole intake from the theatrical experience. We don't have that anymore nowadays because of streaming, and I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, who knows how many films would have more life in them if we weren't living in that way.
Yeah, and I think it was Matt Damon who actually talked about this as well.
I remember that.
Yeah, where he was like, there was this market for video rentals, and where you could get like you could actually see like what people are watching, and how much money they're making from that market alone, whereas in streaming nobody sees that data except for the sites themselves. Like, they don't put that data out. Like, this is like, and if they do put that data out, we don't know if it's true or not. They could be lying for all we know.
Yeah.
And we just have no trail or no like statistic to say what movies are doing good, what are not doing, what's not doing good, what's making money, what's not making money. It's all up to the streaming sites. So there could be a great movie or great show on a streaming site that people will talk about and will call for another season or a sequel, but the streaming site itself won't do that because they don't believe that they can make enough money off of it. But they'll continue to put out other stuff that they believe will do better, or they'll just completely cancel a show or a sequel because they just feel like they have no audience there, which there can be. For instance, like Mindhunter on Netflix. That show was so good. People loved that show. There was 2 seasons of it, and they cut off the 3rd season. They canceled the show, and people love David Fincher. They love his stuff. They love what he's attached to. They love the 2 seasons. They were leading up to them capturing, or at least discovering a new serial killer, and they just cut it off. And people, like, it's critically acclaimed. Everybody who's seen it basically loves it, and yet they're not going to do another season. It's kind of crazy. Like, if this was during the time of video rentals and like still like cable television, I think we would already have like a 4th season coming out. But
yeah,
that's kind of the crazy thing about it. And Highlander was just in that perfect little zone where they could really utilize the industry to expand their franchise, even when their box office wasn't even that great.
I mean, that's how a lot of cult classics were born.
Yeah. And I think that was something I wanted to kind of touch upon, because I honestly think we wouldn't even be talking about this movie if it didn't have that air about it, that franchise air about it that we see nowadays. I mean, it's being remade, and we do want to kind of talk about the remake itself and what we expect of the director and the writers and the producers, and maybe they could kind of rebrand this franchise and make it into something like really good and really fun. So, do you know who's remaking it?
Yeah, it's so funny enough. I mentioned Clancy Brown is in John Wick 4 at the start. It's Chad Stahelski, who is the director of the John Wick movies. Who are, I mean, the John Wick movies are very significant to me as action films. Like, I love those movies. I feel like when I watch one of them, I have to watch all of them. Like, they're a comfort series to me. I love them. Like, I love everything about them. I think all 4 of them are perfect. I don't, like, seriously, like, can't get enough of the John Wick movies.
He has a John Wick, like, kind of like a little shrine.
I do. Yeah, I do. Well, I have, maybe not a shrine, but I own, like, 3 copies minimum of each movie.
Yeah.
Literally. So, at the 3rd one, I own, like, 5. I have the coins. Like, I got everything.
Yeah.
I love John Wick, seriously. So I'm stoked for that, obviously. It's going to supposedly star Henry Cavill, which I think is good casting.
Yeah.
He could be great. I think he can be stoic, but I think he can also add a lot of humanity to the character. I like Henry Cavill. He can, I think he deserves more shots than he's given. I feel like he kind of had a bad situation happen to him with the whole Superman thing and The Witcher as well. So, Henry Cavill, I like him.
Yep.
What else do we know about?
Okay. So, I think Henry Cavill is a good choice. I think way back I remember reading that Dwayne the Rock Johnson was supposed to be attached to it.
Nah, man, come on.
I could be wrong about this, but I think that's what I remembered.
That's the Superman and Black Adam fight that we never got. That's what we're gonna get.
Yeah, but yeah, if that were the case, then I would have been like, no, it's dead already.
Well, I mean, we'll see. He's gonna be in the next Scorsese movie.
That's true. But with Henry Cavill and Chad Stahelski, I think that's gonna be great. Chad hasn't done anything bad so far, so it's looking good. Let's talk about the writers on it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 writers so far that is attached to it.
Okay.
We're gonna go by it kind of one by one. Let's start with the most interesting writer on this, at least so far that we know of. Melissa Rosenberg. Do you know this writer?
I feel like I've heard that name before.
You've definitely heard that name because you saw like a bunch of her films recently. She did the Twilight movies.
Oh. No, see, now that is a movie where someone falls in love with someone immortal and it works.
Yeah, well, let me just...
Wait, no, yeah, that's totally where I saw her name recently. In the credits of every Twilight.
So, I just want... I'm sorry, for you watching, I'm on my phone because I just want to make sure I'm not messing up any information here. But, yeah, I don't know, it's changed now. So, she's not even highlighted as a co-writer. Wow, just within days they've taken off all the writers that
we are fucking liars. Sorry.
Wow. So maybe not a part of the rating.
Maybe those were all writers they were considering, or writers that were in the talks.
There was probably a writer's room where they got a lot of people to kind of throw out ideas. But now it looks like, at least from Letterboxd, they've changed it to just one writer, Michael Finch, who wrote John Wick 4.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, John Wick 4, maybe, possibly my favorite John Wick movie. It's hard to say because the first John Wick is iconic. For me, I think I've seen the third one like 2 times, and I really love that one. But the fourth one, there's just so much great stuff in that one that it might be my favorite one.
It's definitely the most accomplished one, but I think the first one is my favorite still, because it just it just has it's 100 minutes, bro. It's 100 minutes, all killer, no filler. It's so good.
It's great. I remember watching the first John Wick, going with my brother and my father to see it, and Keanu Reeves wasn't like a huge. He was obviously a huge name, but he wasn't like he wasn't a box office name anymore. He was kind of just another, like, he wasn't at his peak at that time. He kind of fell off a bit, and so we're like, okay, Keanu Reeves movie, let's see how this goes. Blew us away. We were all like, this is great. What? This just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even see the trailer for the movie until like a week or 2 before it came out, and I was like, holy crap.
Well, let me tell you something about Chad Stahelski that makes me, and also that writer, that makes me excited too. Mm-hmm. The first John Wick has, well, I don't think, the first John Wick is not written by that guy.
No.
But the first John Wick has incredible world building.
Yeah.
And also, that carries throughout the whole series, but the first one especially because it's the introduction. There is just incredible world building in those movies. The way that they just introduce the coins, the currency, all the debts, all the transactions that it runs on, the hierarchy of power in that world, the way that John himself is seen by those around him. I mean, I think about that scene when he takes out all those guys in his house in the first one, and the cops show up, and you think, oh, shit, because it has such a consciousness over like how the viewer is going to take in this world due to what they're used to, and it constantly subverts that in clever ways. Like when the cop is just like, "Oh, you're working again?" He sees like a dead body. He's like, "Oh, you're working again?" And he's like, "No, just sorting some stuff out." He's like, "Okay, well." evening. Like the way that he's like, noise complaint? Yeah, noise complaint. Like just, you get the sense they've done that 100 times. The cops are like, okay, well, we can't fuck with this guy, so let him do what he's got to do. That kind of stuff, I think, for Highlander could be great.
I 100% agree. That's why I was a fan when they said that Chad was coming in to direct. And yeah, that's what this movie needs. This movie needs a better sense of world building and a sense of like, oh, they're like this actually, like,
It feels lived in.
lived in, yes.
Yeah.
And we're not just kind of like going with it as the movie just kind of sprinkles in information for you, but not enough. I'm just excited that like we're gonna get like some kind of John Wick-esque like feeling for the Highlander movie, which I feel like is necessary and kind of needed. Anyway, Michael Finch, the writer, he also did Predators, the one with Adrien Brody, another movie with IP that they kind of had to branch off of and kind of add to the lore, which, Predators, fine movie.
I have not seen it.
It's not terrible or anything. And he also did American Assassin. Yeah, he did American Assassin. Which, have you seen that one?
No.
It has Michael Keaton in it and Dylan O'Brien. Fine movie. There is a little bit of a sense of world building in that movie too. So I think they got a good enough writer for this movie to really bring all the pieces together. It's also going to be produced by Neil H. Moritz. Do you know that producer?
I do not.
All right. So he is known for the Fast and Furious movies.
Okay.
Kind of interesting. It also makes sense. It feels like Highlander needs to have that kind of Fast and Furious kind of sense of craziness, but also you're with it.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, he's known for that. Also doing the Sonic movies. Again, big IPs, which there's a lot of lore, but they kind of do it well. I like the Sonic movies.
I like them too.
I think they do all the characters and the lore and all that really well. And you're not leaving the movie questioning like, oh, I didn't really understand that, or like, I don't play the video game, so I don't really get what's going on here. But no, they do that really good. He's also a producer on the 21 Jump Street movies, the two, which also makes sense because that's also a franchise that looks at prior IP and kind of changing it up and making it better and more contemporary, which is another thing that Highlander is going to need to do, is make it more contemporary without all that 80s cheese as a stylistic point. But yeah, I have high hopes for the remake. I'm excited for it. Anything else you want to talk? There's actually a lot of stuff on here that I didn't really get into, but I think we kind of went through a little bit of it.
Yeah, and we went like almost an hour longer than we thought we would talking about this movie.
So I think we talked a bit of crap on the movie, but I do want to mention just a few things just to kind of lessen the blow, I guess. Because I do genuinely rewatch this movie a lot. I think it's a fun movie to just like be totally bamboozled by and be like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening, but it's kind of funny and weird. But I think the movie is as stylistic and as interested in all these transitions. It has a lot of great transitions in this movie. A lot of the staging and the set pieces is because Russell Mulcahy, I think that's how you say his name. He was known for doing music videos, and he was attached to some of the biggest music videos of the 80s. For instance, he did the music video for Video Killed the Radio Star, which is like one of the first really big music videos to pop out, and that kind of started the whole MTV thing where music videos were like the big thing in Hollywood. And he did music videos for Elton John, Duran Duran, like Hungry Like a Wolf. That was a big music video at the time. So he's known for all style, no substance kind of stuff. Because when it comes to directing music videos, you don't necessarily need to direct it based on the lyrics of the music. At least that's what they always said to me in film school. Is like you just want to capture a vibe. You want to capture the vibe of the music. You don't want to capture necessarily what's happening.
And that's not always true. There's a lot of music videos with great storytelling.
Oh, sure, for sure. But in a lot of music directors, they don't really care for that stuff. They want to put something that's just as visually appealing and complementary to the music as you can possibly do. Like, that's where Michael Bay, David Fincher, all these guys got their big start, was just really like bringing the vibe to the video. And that's what Russell I can't figure out this guy's last name. Russell Macaulay?
Sure.
Mulcahy.
Yes,
Mulcahy.
that's it.
There it is. That's what he's known for. And it makes sense that he would direct a movie like this with no real consideration for the actors or the characters or the story or the plot, because he's a music video director. And you don't need to care about that stuff in music videos. You only want the style and the vibes.
I mean, I think he tried to care about that stuff here.
Well, sure, if you're a director of a movie, you're going to try to care about it, but that's not what he's used to. And
maybe not his priority. I mean, you could see the Daniels were music video directors, and now they make movies that are, well, they also made shorts, but they make movies that
I'm
are
not saying that if you come from being a music video director that you're just going to be a style over substance kind of guy, but I think that's more present with his filmography than, say, David Fincher, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there's that. There's also the music's done by Queen. Really
That's true. I totally forgot about that.
Really interesting. I love Queen. I'm a big fan of Queen. That being said, don't like their music in this movie.
Yeah, it's like the most forgettable Queen music I've ever heard. I literally forgot about it.
Yeah, it is. I don't think it's good. It's a bit too sappy and syrupy and not the vibes that this movie needed. If they had a song that was more in line with like Flash Gordon, like their song for Flash Gordon, Flash. That song, that's a great song. That's a great little theme. If they had something like that in this movie, I think that would have been great, but they don't. All the music that they do in this movie is just kind of forgettable and it's not really there. But yeah, they did all the soundtrack stuff. The composer was Michael Kamen, though. I love Michael Kamen. Do you know what he's done?
I've heard that name before. I'm just not good with tracking all this stuff as much as you.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm here. But Michael Kamen, great guy. He's been in the industry for so long. He did like X-Men, the first X-Men movie, which is really cool. Yeah. He, I think what this music reminds me a lot more out of all of his music that he's done is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Because if you hear the music in that movie compared to the music in this movie, there's some moments where they're very similar. And I just think as a film lover, I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway, the music, fine. It's just kind of there. It could have been better. It could have made the movie better a little bit, but it doesn't. And what else? I think that's like most of the stuff that I didn't really talk about, but that I wanted to mention. Yeah, any last things about this movie you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I can see the appeal for it for some people. I wish I liked it. It kind of just passed me by. I didn't really feel gravitated towards it particularly at any point. I wasn't able to sink my teeth into it, unfortunately. It's sad when you don't like a movie. That's all. It's just sad. I think a lot of people nowadays, a lot of people tend to enjoy disliking movies. I think that's like a thing now. Like people,
unfortunately,
like,
so
it kind of seems like disliking a movie is like more fun for some people. But I think disliking a movie is so unfortunate because it's like I don't really have much to say. One, because I want to be positive about movies, but two, because like I would much rather tell you about something great, and that requires like it'll allows you to get more into like why you connect to the movie, whereas I don't connect to this movie, and that's, I don't know, it's not very good. It's not very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I come back to this movie so often, is because I find it entertaining by how bafflingly incoherent some of like the movie. It's actually not incoherent. It's just like there's bombastic and weird and illogical, and it just blows my mind that a movie like this came out in the 80s and got fairly good reviews when it came. It's got like a 69 on Rotten Tomatoes. I actually have a quote right here on Rotten Tomatoes that says that people hate it because it's cheesy, bombastic, and absurd, but that's also the reason why some people love the movie.
Well, yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And that's why I love the movie, is because it's cheesy, bombastic, and absurd, but I also hate it because it's cheesy, bombastic, and absurd. And I'm kind of left in this little middle ground.
I like that it's bombastic. I like that it's absurd. I don't necessarily like how cheesy it is. There's just a certain tone of cheese that this movie has that is just not my thing.
There's definitely parts in the movie that thinks it's a lot cooler than it actually is. Like when Christopher Lambert's like getting interrogated by the cops and he's just throwing back like liners, and it's like you think you're saying something really cool here, but it's not coming off as cool and as macho as you think it is.
I think it just kind of shows there's a little bit of the movie doesn't really have I don't feel like the movie presents itself confidently, but I don't think it actually comes across like the way it thinks it is.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel aware. That's all. I mean, it's kind of like Lucky Number 11, where that movie has so many like one-liners and like complex like dialogue moments that are trying to be kind of Guy Ritchie, Quentin Tarantino, like super flashy, but it's like, well, I can tell you're trying to be like those things. This does not come naturally from you. This is very like strongly attempted, and it's not landing. And that's kind of how some of the stuff in Highlander feels.
Yeah. It's just a mess. It's a messy movie. But I think that's why it needs a remake. That's why I think the remake will be better. Like, it would actually blow my mind if the remake is worse than Highlander, like the original Highlander.
I feel like that's almost impossible.
I feel like that's almost impossible too. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are excited for it too. I know we've been rambling kind of all over the place about this movie, but I also think if you haven't seen Highlander, that you should see Highlander.
I also think us rambling matches the tone of the film.
Yeah. Again, I don't like being negative about movies, but there's a lot of constructive things that need to happen with this movie for the remake to work. And I feel like if people watch this movie, they can get kind of more of an understanding about our feelings on it. So if you haven't seen it, obviously go watch it. Like, I don't even know what you're listening to this for.
I don't think, this I mean, this is kind of a hard market right now.
Yeah.
We're looking for people who've seen Highlander and want to listen to two guys talk about it for an hour and a half. So that's where we're gonna call this episode.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into our first episode of Fixer Uppers. This is a segment where, like I said, we try to kind of look at a movie that we think could actually use the remake treatment, give it constructive criticism, talk about if there is a remake, what we know about it. So thanks for tuning in. This is a series. I don't know when we'll do the next one. But it's just when the right movie comes along.
We were talking about some ideas, but if you guys have any if you guys want to suggest us anything to talk about, we'll take that into consideration. But I think our next one will have it a little bit more less messy, less all over the place, but still is fun, still interesting.
Yeah, and if you're not following us, please give us a follow. Look in the description for our link tree. You can get us on X, unfortunately, at the ABC's Pod, Instagram as well at the ABC's Pod, and then everywhere else at Applebox Chronicles. Email us at appleboxchronicles@gmail.com if you're interested in sending over feedback or suggestions for the show. We're always looking for ways to improve. Also check out my social links, which are also in the description. Also check out Adrion's letterbox, which is in the description. If you want to see what we're watching and what we might be cooking up for the podcast, you might get a little bit of a hint as to what we're doing next based on what we're watching. I've been Peyton.
And I've been Adryon.
And we'll see you next time on the Apple Box.